Death of a celebrity. James Van Der Beek. James Van Der Beek died a few days ago of colorectal cancer. I don't even know what it is. He was on Dawson's Creek with Katie Holmes, who would later become Tom Cruise's wife, and that, I forget her name, Jennifer something, the blonde chick, who would later become Heath Ledger's wife, and that little dork with the fat face was on the show Supernatural. Dawson's Creek was a pretty good show for a teen TV show. The character Dawson was extremely likable. I watched it. James Van Der Beek was 48 when he died. That's how old I am. But all in all, yeah, everything's tragic. Every death is tragic. But he lived a very fortunate, unbelievably awesome, lucky life. How many people get to live, be a star of a TV show? He had a wife and 6 kids. He was tall, white, good looking. And as a 48-year-old, I can tell you I've lived plenty. I've always said, even in my 20s, I said, if I died right now, I've already lived more than most people get to. Okay, so he got to marry a hot wife also, and he got to have 6 kids, so he got to carry on his legacy, right? 6 healthy, white, blonde kids and a hot, white, blonde wife. First of all, they're not going to be tragic. They're gonna have the easiest time. The whole world's going to have an outpouring towards them. And I'm thinking, but what about the poor, fat, ugly black lady that lost their husband? Nobody cares about them and their 6 kids, right? It's like when you see a hot chick crying, your heart goes out to them, right? Edgar Allan Poe said this: there's nothing more poetic than a beautiful woman, crying, or something like that. Oh, he said a beautiful woman dying. That's the most poetic thing in all of poetry. Okay, so, but guess what? Don't cry for the hot chick who's crying. She's gonna be just fine. Don't worry. And then it hit me, he knew his career had already hit its peak. He knew how hard it was gonna be to be an actor, right? He'd already, I don't want to say washed up, but he'd already had his hit show. It wasn't likely he was going to have, a big career thing happen. And he continued having kids. And that's really irresponsible. Who has 6 kids in the year 2026? Even if they're a multi-millionaire, the world's falling apart. Why would you do that? Right? I made a point to never have kids because I knew I wasn't going to be rich. That's the responsible thing you do. 6 kids. And now I want to get to the real villain of this story. You see, after James Van Der Beek left us, somebody started a Kickstarter or a fundraiser, GoFundMe, for the beautiful hot model wife and the kids, 6 white blonde kids, and they raised $2 million in just a few days. And I'm like, oh yeah, as if some ugly woman with 6 kids would be able to raise that money. But one person, guess who donated some money, and guess how much money they donated? Steven Spielberg came to the rescue. Steven Spielberg, whose estimated worth is $7 billion, donated $25,000 to the family of James Van Der Beek. What a cheap piece of shit. See, I've done the math. And see the difference between, let's say I've got $7,000 in the bank, because that's kind of how much I'm worth. Well, the difference is 6 zeros. So take 6 zeros out, or add 6 zeros. So Steven Spielberg gave $25,000 out of his $7 billion. How much would that be if you scale it down by 6 zeros? If I gave that percentage? Well, that would be 2.5 cents. But let's say I was generous and I gave a woman whose husband just died and had 6 kids to feed. Imagine I gave her 10 times as much. Imagine if I gave her a quarter. That would be an insult. She should throw it back at me and call me a piece of garbage. If I gave a quarter to that person, that would be like Steven Spielberg giving $250,000. It would still be an insult. I don't know. You still take it because, for an average person, $250,000 is a lot of money. But you should certainly keep it in mind that Steven Spielberg is a cheap piece of crap. And out of touch. You got to be really out of touch when you have $7 billion and you think you're showing generosity by giving away $25,000. Now, I've predicted this before. I think Steven Spielberg has a scandal that's just waiting to break. He's been too squeaky clean. He's been too much of a factory fuck. He helped Brett Ratner launch his career. He donated like $10,000 to Brett Ratner's first independent film when he was when he was in college or some shit. He helped Michael Bay, so he's helped a lot of really shitty film directors and morally questionable film directors. But yet he's retained this Tom Hanks goody two shoes kind of vibe. Well, I bet you he's in the Epstein files. I think the truth about him is going to come out. So anyways, rest in peace, James Van Der Beek. I liked your show, Dawson's Creek. You probably should have had more of a career. I always liked him as an actor. And his wife and kids will be just fine. Don't worry. 6 blonde white kids and a hot white blonde wife. They're going to be just fine.